right, everybody, it's 11 o'clock. Here we go. We're going to start right on time. Thank you, everyone, for being with me. Okay, so I don't need to make any adjustments on my screen. Do our prayer of gratitude, then we'll do, for the new people, then we do the 1-minute recap of what is energy healing, and then we do a short recap of yesterday to bring everybody up to speed, and then dive into today's session. All right. Thank you to the source of creation, the being of all, for being everything, for being this live webinar, for being all the beings of creation. Thank you for being the connection and relationship with our ancestors, and thus the connection and relationship between the physical material aspect of self and that field which is the source of all creation. Thank you for being the divine in all of us, for being all of us together, for the union of the great souls together in this live webinar. And may the webinar be blessed with the ability to work profoundly and effectively and concisely, and always deepest gratitude and appreciation to the eternal tradition of wisdom, without whose flow of knowingness none of this would be. With all gratitude, thank you. All right, so 1-minute recap. What is energy healing? Energy healing is the ability to focus attention in an intelligent manner. Our attention is really the pure essence of divine being. It's the pure essence of its consciousness, its awareness, perception, pure consciousness. So whatever it falls upon, it activates that value of totality or wholeness wherever it goes. So when the reason we feel pain when we're sick is because the body wants to draw awareness into that area, because it's the awareness that activates the ability to heal. It brings all the healing energies. So that's the focus of awareness. And in energy healing, what we do is we know that that happens. And so we do it with a lot of intention and with a foundation of understanding why we're doing it and how that works. For example, the thanking the ancestors. The ancestors reside, the archive of the ancestors resides at the level of DNA of the physiology. So when we're thanking the ancestors and working with the ancestors, we're really working with the physicality of the body, because that's where our bodies came from. So, all right. The other piece of information recapping what is energy healing is that we have a range. Who and what we are is a range from physical material all the way down to very, very fine and pure being. So there's a y-axis right there, from very, very physical material down to less, and then being. And there's an x-axis. And I was informed yesterday that because you guys are seeing a mirror image from what I'm seeing, I'm going to start running the x-axis backwards to me, but forwards to you. So the x-axis goes this way, and it goes from very dense, dark unpleasantness on one end and bliss on the other end. And that's the range of human experience and manifestation in this physical material realm, but also in fine realms too. The fine realms of creation. There are some places in delicate abstract levels that are quite awful, and others that are quite fantastic. All right, so we've got X and Y. That's the recap. Now a brief recap of yesterday. So in yesterday's session, I defined better what the purpose of this particular webinar is and what the gist of this webinar. And the title is Healings for the Transmigration of Souls. And I was inspired to do that because as a group, we've been immensely powerful, and we've been able to affect very beautiful, incredible healing transformations, not only for ourselves as individuals and ourselves as a group, but also for the whole world. So because of that, I thought, well, what would be the most powerful, the most useful healing we could give to the whole world. You know, how could we use the healing potential in this powerful group to do something that would be really life-supporting at the most fundamental level? And it occurred to me that one of the principles, one of the collective experiences that we're having right now on Earth is that souls start out growing. They grow through smaller, more delicate physiologies or more simple physiologies to more complex physiologies, and eventually the soul takes a human form. And in a human form, we have this freedom to make mistakes and to have free will, at least the illusion of free will, the perception of free will. And in the human condition, the souls have tended to get stuck. So we have more and more souls coming in from the lower realms of creation. Oops, we're coming in this way. Sorry, mirror image. Okay, choreographer's dyslexia here. So we have them coming in from the earlier stages of development. And as we're going through the human condition, there's so much value in the human condition and there's so much to explore and understand about how does a soul come from some deep level of experience of being some sort of animal form or some more simple form, and what is the mechanics of how they become human and they have that experience of will and the ability to expand in all directions. And it's been worked. We've been working that deeper end of the spectrum for a really long time. Humanity has. Just look over the history of the last 100 years. We've seen a lot of hell on Earth in the last 100 years, right? So that area has been well worked. It's been well massaged and well understood. But what we need to do in these sessions is work up the upper end, the high frequency range of the energies. And what are the skill sets that we need as people right now on Earth today that will allow us to become adept at opening up the upper range of experience, not only for ourselves, but for the whole world. So yesterday we did an opening for access to the Akashic record. There was a big ancestral healing, as I recall. There was a very big, that ancestral healing involved work to promote refinement of perception so that we can see those higher, finer frequencies. We can perceive and experience them, not always visually, but through all the senses. I looked at it and I thought, well, what other skill sets do we need? And that's what brings me to today. I would like to start with an exercise just to get everybody really going on the next skill set here. I'm trying to find that question. Oh, there's so many awesome questions coming in here. Man. Okay, so I'm going to go with this question right here. This is from somebody who was in the session last night, and afterwards I came up with this thought, is that how much our individual advancement along the x-axis, that's this one, from unpleasant to pleasant, is in relationship to the mass consciousness, to collective consciousness. Another way to ask is, are we hindered by those who don't want to evolve as well as assisted by those who do? Is the resistance from those not ready pulling those who are ready backwards? Or does an individual reach a vibratory point where they aren't influenced by lower frequencies? So I know, great question, right? Okay, so we're looking at the x-axis, and I'd just like to preface this by saying that the exercise I'd like to bring in at this point has to do with the ability and enhancing our ability to move energy. It's good to be able to move energy. And here's how that relates to the x-axis. We talked about balance in the x-axis because we're sitting in our we're sitting in our state of our physiology, right? From manifest to unmanifest. And I've talked a lot about balance. You guys have been hearing me talk about this for at least 2 previous webinars. So the importance of maintaining a point of balance between negativity and positivity so that those values can work together as a wholeness to promote transformation and evolutionary change. But here's what I realized. Think of the x-axis like a seesaw. And if I put my balance point right smack in the middle, as close to the middle as I can get, then what happens is the kids on either side are the same weight. If I can find my middle point, if I've got some like intense negativity brewing over here, and my physiology feels sick, or somebody's upset or something, then if I put my balance point smack in the middle, what will happen is that will cause an activation of positivity in being, in the field of being, in the larger field of my own self, which will come up to balance that kid on this side. So I've got a kid 80 pounds over here, I end up with a kid 80 pounds over here, and I'm balanced in the middle. And what happens is, maintaining my balance, they start to play. They play on a seesaw, and bliss comes out of that. Bliss comes out of that interaction between the two elements. Immortality. One of the statements from the Vedas is immortality emerges. Okay. But what if, and this relates to this comment, like, well, what if some people are kind of balanced more toward, they're not so evolved, so they're balanced kind of more towards the negative end, and they're living in a reality that's not fun, that's more hellish. And what if there's some people who are balanced more toward the positive end, and they're living in a reality that's more fun? Okay, so what happens? We got our seesaw. You get someone who's placing their balance point over here on the positive end. What that means is this kid can't weigh very much. I mean, excuse me, this kid's got to weigh more, this kid's got to be heavier, and this kid less, because you've got this leverage thing going on, right? So it's not that the balance point has to be smack in the middle. It's that not only is every point along the seesaw a point of potential balance, but every point, this is the rocket science, guys, but we'll get to the fluffy cake in just a minute, and that every point along the y-axis is also a balance point. So you can get a balance between, on the y-axis, you can get a balance between absolute and relative at every point along the y-axis. So in other words, when awareness, when the manifest self, conscious mind settles down to the point of pure unmanifest being, then we've brought the relative to the absolute. But the absolute can penetrate through the field of the relative. And at that point, the absolute is being brought to the relative. So we get different degrees of balance between relative and absolute, all the way from very, very fine to very, very dense. And along the x-axis, the same thing can happen. So if you start picturing a grid, what we have are points of balance at every single point on the grid. Okay. So that's a kind of complicated thing. So what we need to do is evolve our ability to move with grace, to move like a boss, like a master around the grid, and be able to position ourselves at any point on that grid, even if 50% or 90% of the population are not feeling it, they're not waking up and they just want to stay in their animal state or whatever. It doesn't matter, that you can be flexible. So the answer to the lady's question is, we have the freedom. Once you're awake, once you know you have a hand, oh, the things you can do. Once you know about energy healing, oh, the things you can do. You can position yourself regardless of what's going on in the collective consciousness, rather than being like the pawn of the collective consciousness, rather than being a leaf blown around in the wind of the collective consciousness. Instead, one says, okay, this is what the collective consciousness is doing. This is where I choose to position myself in order for my being to produce an influence which is best aligned with cosmic evolution and best aligned with the highest and best good for everyone. Right? So the more negativity is out there, the more intense, crazy stuff happens. In fact, that acts like a kind of a weight, that acts like a kid who's heavy on that end of the seesaw, right? That gives you the freedom to weight up your kid, or to move your balance point, however you want to move it there along. If this kid's heavy, I guess what you can do is you can give this kid over here either more seesaw length, or you can feed that kid. So you can position, you can decide, because there, just as in Vedic math, there are maybe an infinite number of ways to solve a mathematical equation. There are infinite number of ways to deal with the challenges that we're facing as a collective right now. And we've been in habits of facing these challenges in specific ways, but a lot of those ways have kind of proven themselves over time are no longer relevant, and they don't really work as well as we would like them to work. For example, self-sacrifice is one way to get the attention of the divine and to get to get changes to occur in the environment. But self-sacrifice also causes personal damage. And so that's not necessarily the best way to handle the situation. All right. So now I'd like to offer this lovely exercise. This exercise heals the heart and the immune system. And this is a great time to do it in the fall when the season changes and the immune system is often facing more than the usual pressures. And what we're going to do is we're going to practice moving the energy starting in the heart area, the heart chakra area, through the range of essential components of matter. And what I mean by that is space, air, fire, water, and earth. So we're going to connect the heart energy, starting with earth, and then up to space. And it's just a chance to feel and to exercise your amazing ability to move the energy in your body on your own. It's very easy. It's very easy. So for those who want to close eyes, you can do that. Otherwise, we can do eyes open. We're going to start by placing awareness in the heart area. There's not only a heart chakra there, but there's also a great sort of heart energy center, and there's a whole auric field of the heart chakra. So we've got this nice big area full of energy. And what consciousness does in the heart chakra is it takes the form of love. Pure consciousness, pure quality-less being feels like love in the heart. And what we're going to do is we're going to intentionally feeling that lovely. And what I want you to do is notice just how much feeling of love you've got going on there. Just how much have we got volume-wise? Because everybody has a different baseline, right? So we're going to take that baseline and we're going to offer that love down through the body and down into Mother Earth. And what we're doing is essentially we're offering our love to Mother Earth. It's a way of grounding. We're grounding ourselves. We're gaining the stability and strength from the earth. At the same time, we're nurturing Mother Earth with our own love. It feels good to do that because it strengthens our connection to our life force and to our environment. All right, and beautiful earth, precious earth. Now we're going to bring that energy up. It's been soaking in stability. It's going to start coming up, and just feel your awareness move up through the lower chakras, back up to the heart area, and then continue moving the energy up. Move the awareness up through the throat, through the head, and out the crown of the head, and let it kind of spray out to infinity, to the source of creation, to divinity, in divinity and into infinity, infinite divinity. The space, that space. So from earth to space, there's a lot of bliss up in that space area. And even though there's bliss, we can hang out there for the next hour, but let's bring it back in, back into the heart. Notice the volume of love in the heart now. Notice there's more strength, more stability, more quality and quantity of love in a very blissful way. It's very healing for this whole area of the physiology. Thank you. All right. So that beautiful exercise came from a dear friend who was working with crystals, and he was doing some grounding work with the crystals and putting the energy, breathing through and putting the energy into the ground and back up to the crystals, and evolved that on his own. Very, very brilliant, magnificently brilliant man. I feel it's an honor to know. And so I'm telling you that because some people would say, well, an ascended master gave him that download for that exercise. And that's one way of looking at the mechanic of what happened. But from my perspective, what really happened was his own ascended master quality, because this is a man who's been decades on the spiritual path, and he's absolutely brilliant, and he's developed heart and developed mind to a very, very high degree. So is it that something outside of him caused him to have that revelation, or is it that he actually became integrated with that aspect of his own consciousness, so then he could just do it? He just found it. It came to him. It evolved out of his own infinite creativity and intelligence. The answer is, it just depends on your point of view. If the point of view is, I'm this little separate, pathetic little being, and all this great being is outside of me, and so then you can say something came and did. But if that point of balance is present at every point in creation, then the balance integrates, right? You got a kid on either side, and you get your balance point in there, then all of a sudden they can play. So it's the balance that has the effect in the physiology and in the consciousness of integrating. So it's that point of integration that he achieved by using his balance that allowed him to draw up that exercise. It's a wonderful exercise, and it can be done on any of the chakras, or certainly the other two main centers. There's a center in the gut area and a center in the head area. And I'll let you guys have fun with that and explore with it, because it's a wonderful exercise. It's a wonderful tool. And just a note, if you decide to take it to the other areas, consciousness, pure being, takes on the form of awareness or perception in the head, and it takes on the form of creative energies in the gut area. So instead of feeling it with the quality of love, we would be feeling it with awareness, or feeling it with creativity. All right, beautiful. Now I just want to make sure I answer that question. So the answer is yes, we're always influenced by the collective consciousness. But the difference between what we're doing in energy healing, and you are doing this, we're all doing this together in the field of energy healing, versus people who are just kind of going along in survival mode from day to day, is that there's some conscious awareness of what we're doing and intention to place ourselves at different points in that great continuum of expression of being. And by doing that, we can occupy a space that allows us to draw on our own innate potential to heal ourselves and others. I think that answered the question. Yes. All right. Okay, here's another question. Since we have the dear Europeans with us today, here's a question from Europe. He's asking how to deal with healing energy myself, and is still a work in progress. And that's fine. But he's experienced sometimes with giving energy to himself or to his physiology. He's noticed how the body responds differently to different forms or different colors or flavors of energy. For instance, the difference between golden and white light. It's maybe a silly question. No, it's not a silly question. It's an awesome question. But do I have an idea about how the different colors affect the energy itself? I couldn't help wondering. Yeah, it's a brilliant question. It's brilliant. So you can imagine if we have a grid from dense to subtle and dark to light, that anywhere we place awareness in that grid is going to be kind of a mix of different qualities. Sometimes the energy will be more relative. I talked about this yesterday. We talked a lot about the superconscious and the ways in which we uplift and nurture ourselves in order to be more effective energy healers. And I was pointing out that sometimes the way we do that is at a very physical level by selecting appropriate foods, by getting plenty of rest, that kind of thing, all the way down to working with various forms of energy. Now, this question has more to do with energy as it resides at subtle levels. It is in our y-axis. It's the causal body that is the location where the energies are produced. It's the mechanisms are in the collective level of the self, but the actual, that is to say, the intelligence and the wisdom and the understanding of what different colors do and that kind of thing is down here at the collective level, but then the actual mechanism by which it manifests is at the causal level. Okay, so that's kind of the area of the physiology that we're looking at. All right. At that level of being, we don't have the sort of concrete definition that we have at the relative material level. You see all the colors. We've got all the colors here in my background. So that's really obvious to the eyes. You know, there's some yellow and some orange and green and blue. But at that level, what's being perceived as a color is actually more like a quality of being, and is very much related to where that flavor sits along the x-axis. Because you get down into the more dense, hellish areas, and you get denser, muddier, more intense colors, and you get up into the heavenly areas, and you get more of the golds and the whites, like that. All the pastels and all that. And then, depending on where you place your balance point, you can get mixtures. And it doesn't mix exactly like, it's not exactly like if you had a bunch of colored pencils and you were mixing at that point. I mean, you can literally go down into a dark, muddy area of energy and bring in, it's more like making a painting, you know, where you could take your paintbrush and get some beautiful light sparkling golden in there and put some little gold sparkles in there or something. You can mix it around that way. So the point, and this ties back into yesterday's session when we did for refinement of senses, refinement of the senses, is that these energy frequencies at this level have feels to them. I think that's the best way. I think talking about it in terms of feeling. They have feels. We can think of them as colors, or if you're a musician, you might think of them as harmonies. Certain harmonic relationships are more consonant than others. You've got very consonant at this end and dissonant at that end. We know in music how important dissonance is, right? The jazz musician knows if they throw in like a 9th or a 13th in a chord or something, you get that rich flavor of the chord, and then it resolves to the tonic like that. So I'm thinking of a way to systematically provide everyone with the information about these flavors of light and how they interface with the physiology. What's coming is, that's me diving into, by the way, that silence was me diving into the Akashic record and checking and seeing what's the most useful information I can bring to you right now. The answer is all the light medicines and all the colors and flavors of energy are somewhat transient. They're moving and changing all the time. And our awareness doesn't like to stay just stuck on a single, no matter how blissful and intense. Remember when we were up in the stratosphere with our exercise, that was very blissful up there, but we don't stay there forever because then the webinar becomes boring. So, so it makes sense to keep it moving, to keep it fresh. So the colors of light energy, think of them as paints on your palette, and think of them as useful to, oh yeah, we could even open that if you wanted, next time. think of them as colors on your palette, and think of them as energies that we bring together with other forms in order to produce a specific effect. And the effect is an intelligence. It is a kind of a life force. It's almost like working in the field of pure being, like birthing. It's like birthing. When you have some density in the system or the physiology, and you bring that white energy, you bring that golden energy on there, and they work together, then a relationship is formed, and that relationship has a life force quality to it. It then goes out into the creation, and it becomes what it becomes. And it touches everything. Really, sometimes we sit here and we concentratedly do work for our ancestors or work for the collective. But the fact is, any work that we do moves through our own being and stretches out to the creation and supports everyone. So that's one thing I can say about it. But about the colors, I understand myself what some of the colors mean. Pink is a very, very soft color, and it's almost always prevalent when the healing process is taking place. Just saying. The richer colors, it just depends on the nervous system. Some people's nervous systems resonate better with softer, more delicate colors. Some resonate more with more intense dynamic contrasts. The better we are at finding our point of balance, the greater range of palette you can work with. So I think at this point I need to recheck with everyone that we understand what that means, balance. And I know I've gone over that a bunch, but it's so basic and it's so fundamental. Sometimes I feel like I should include it in the prayer, because it's fundamental, everybody. So we're going to go and we're just going to find our point of balance. Everybody finding the point of balance. And I'm feeling some people finding their point of balance between discordant feelings and the healing that addresses those discordant feelings to bring about soothing and upliftment to those heart chakras, to the heart chakra areas. This is kind of almost like a little extension of that heart exercise, because I'm feeling some soothing taking place in the heart area, and I'm seeing a lot of that beautiful pink. Even though my background's orange, we got pinks going on in the heart chakra areas. And it's good to feel that the heart is a very sensitive organ. It's an organ of perception. And so one of the best places that you can examine the effects of different colored lights for yourself is by looking at them from the perspective of the heart chakra, which wouldn't have been possible if we hadn't just done that exercise and done the upliftment and awakening for the heart chakra areas. So good job, everybody. I didn't see it coming, but you must have known, because that's what happened. Beautiful, beautiful. There are no mistakes. Everything exactly as it's supposed to happen. So you can try on like clothing. You can try on the different colors and see how they feel. Today's the day of Saturn. So Saturn's colors are blue, darker colors. And so you'll notice that some days a color works beautifully for you. And another day it may not feel like quite the most appropriate thing. And that's because we're also working within the field of even larger collective, which is all living beings and bodies in our universe. Just letting everyone enjoy the spectrum. Enjoy the spectrum from dark to light, and then the rainbow at every point. Beautiful. All right, so have fun with that. And we may go back and if I get more downloads about it, I may go back and do more specific exercises and so with that, maybe in other webinars. But this is the main, just kind of circling back to the main theme of this webinar, which is the transmigration of souls. What we're doing is activating the various skill sets that we need to move into the higher frequency range. So getting more refined perception, perceiving those light energies, working with being able to move awareness up and down the spectrum in balance and across the x-axis in balance. Okay, here is another question. Here's another question. This is an amazing question from a man who has amazing experiences. Just beautiful, brilliant, brilliant man. Can you say something about the chakras above the crown chakra? Because we did some healing work with that yesterday. It seems that higher frequency vibration resides there. Yes, absolutely. So does the x-axis go this way? Well, it also goes that way, right? Okay. Higher frequency vibration resides there. Also, those higher frequencies seem to stimulate rasa downloads. So I better define rasa downloads for you. And he's actually defined it here from his perspective. Basically, a motivation born of Shakti, frequency elevation, stimulates divine grace. So that means this is a kind of very sophisticated way of moving energy through the system, right? I hope that's not too bold. No, it's brilliant. I love it. But I'm going to also do a simpler version of what's rasa for everyone, just so that everyone's on the same track here. Seems like with higher consciousness, both these energies play off each other simultaneously. Example, we commonly hear in a natural way a high pitch frequency along with the deep low pitch drone of Om simultaneously. So yeah, that balance at every point. All right. So rasa means flavor. And rasa is, in this case, the way the gentleman in the question is presenting it, that flavor is the flavor of the highest frequency vibration that the human physiology can comfortably integrate. So depending on where a person is, some people they've been doing their spiritual push-ups for decades and they're used to moving energies and they're already energy healers, and so they're able to, their physiologies have adapted themselves to accommodate very intensely high vibrational frequencies, and other people are just sort of trying it out for the first time. And so in that case, there may be something softer or more delicate that the body receives. But basically flavors, rasa means flavor, and that's not really different from the point that was brought up in the last question of how qualities of consciousness have different colors associated with it. It's really the colors, flavors, and in this case, coming in the upper chakra, that relationship between the life force or energy in the body with cosmic wisdom and cosmic understanding of what evolution means and divine intention means, and how that interfaces with the physiology. Okay, that's the rocket science. Now let's get to the more fluffy cake part. This is just reference to yesterday, because I had people saying, so much rocket science, Dorothy. We need more fluffy cake. So the crown of the head, there are chakras, and I count 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And occasionally I'll go into finer values of upper chakras. But the thing is, the higher you get, the closer they get together, and the more abstract they become, and they start to curl in on each other. The upper chakras do. And some people I know count up into the hundreds. Like I said, Fairfield is a kind of spawning ground for energy healers. So there are a lot of different ways that people deal with the energy out the crown of the head. So just saying that you can count into the hundreds if you want, but it's like pitches in an overtone series. You know, if you start out with a fundamental tone, da, and then you go the octave, da, and then da. And as you go up higher, the notes get closer together and they get also more delicate like that. So it's the same with the chakras. With regards to transmigration of souls, when souls come in from an earlier condition and they're new. When the souls come in new from the animal kingdoms and the other kingdoms of creation, the connection from the individuality to their divinity is more simple. So there can be 1, 2, or 3 beams or threads of light that come out the crown chakra that connect with their divine being, with their infinite being. And it can take many lifetimes for a soul to even realize that divine being is a thing that they have. So that stays very simple as a single thread of light. But then, as a soul travels along the path, that transmigration, they start to migrate along the path of what it means to be human and what the evolutionary trajectory of humanity is as a whole, which is to go from a more animal state to a more divine state. The number of beams increase. So you get individuals who are at a very high level of consciousness, and it's like a crown coming. That's why the concept of a crown, right? Like a golden crown with many, many beams, many, can be hundreds of beams or threads of consciousness that go right out the crown of the head and connect to the cosmic reality. So one of the things we did yesterday was an activation to enliven your relationship with cosmic archives. And when that happens, more beams actually are created. It's like new neural connections. It's like new neural connections. When you learn something new or you do something you've never done before, you make a new neural connection. And then that connection, the more you do that thing, the more that connection stays. So the more we stay connected to and using our access to cosmic archives, such as the Akashic record, then the more, or the field of the divine templates or different archive of divine templates, whatever, all the different locations, blueprints. Sorry, I'm starting to roll. Let's see, there's one that goes here, one goes here. There's an area in the finer levels of creation that is responsible for structuring, manifesting and structuring at a relative, from the level of being to the relative material level of creation. And there's like a whole area in the subtle realm of creation where all the laws of nature for structuring are there. And that, I also think of that as a kind of an archive. There's another area that's specific for healing. All the laws of nature that are good for healing are there. So that's another kind of archive. There are many. There's the archive of the ancestors. That's another one. So there are many different. As I'm saying them, I'm watching them light up. I'm watching everybody start to wake up. Yes, you have a question? Yes. Question.
We're talking about different balances. What about the balancing between the truth and untruth? Like the Akashic records, there's a lot of truth, but is that beyond the duality of truth and untruth?
Oh, wow. That's such an incredible question. Thank you. I'm going to repeat it just in case you guys didn't hear it. So the question was, what about balancing between truth and untruth? And if we think of the Akashic record as truth, then, how do we find that balance between what is real and what is unreal, what is true, what is untrue? My experience is that really the whole universe is highly, it's so multidimensional that in this particular lineage, in this particular line that we're following right now, there are certain things that are true. But there are other alternate realities that aren't, where it's different. Like I actually had a near-death experience like about a week ago. I mean, an almost getting killed experience is what I had. It wasn't really a near-death. It was like I almost got killed. And so I can laugh, right? Because I didn't get killed. But after that experience, I realized that in another level of creation, I did get killed. So the truth is, I'm standing here and I'm alive today. But there's another truth, which is I died a week ago. And so when we start bringing in the factor of multiple simultaneous parallel universes, then all of a sudden, truth and untruth, there's a big range, and the measure, we basically have to evolve. And I really appreciate this question, everybody, because what this gentleman is bringing out is that we, in order to make our way to transmigrate up to the higher frequencies, we really have to evolve or develop a new system for understanding what is truth, right? We have to redefine how we think about truth entirely, because there's much more to it than meets the eye. There's much more to it than resides just at this particular line of experience, of human experience. Ah, it's so profound. Thank you. It's a beautiful question. Let me just ask into the Akashic record and see what we need to do, what we need to do as a group, because this is giving us a chance to utilize the potential of our healing circle here. So I'm just going to ask in. We have the reality that there are multiple simultaneous parallel universes. And also I'm getting that also culturally, different cultures have different codes of behavior. So what's appropriate and true and good, considered good behavior in one culture is not in another. And having lived many, many lifetimes, we've done it all. So right now, at this moment, each one of us has done things that at the time were considered honorable and noble and acceptable. And then several lifetimes later, in a completely different culture, that behavior is not acceptable, noble, or it's actually a crime. And you would go to jail, or you would have, some other punishment. So all of a sudden, we find ourselves living in physiologies and living a history where some of the things that we've done have been completely acceptable at any point, wherever we are along the continuum of our evolution. We can look back and feel good about what we did or bad about what we did. And I think the fact that we can pull this back in a circle back to personal experience, I feel like that's an important part of what we're doing, because this is about healing ourselves and uplifting our ability to do the work that we need to do more effectively. So we have to separate our definition of what is true. It's a matter of breaking down the old paradigm to a certain degree. And the old paradigm defines truth in a broad fashion that includes what is also correct and appropriate and right. And I think we have to separate that out a little bit and look at the reality that for everything that happens in creation, there's also its opposite. So the truth is wholeness. Wholeness is the truth. And that we have to accept that as humans, at any given moment, we are looking at a portion of reality at the superficial level through our senses. Unless consciousness has evolved to that point that wholeness is present in every perception. And that is also part of yesterday's healing session. As I recall, we did a healing for bliss at within every perception. That was that whole limbic system thing. So wholeness, and that there's bliss, that is the reality in every perception, in every experience. It's a simple truth. We're coming back to a very simple. If we want to know what's really true, is that love is a foundational energy in the Akashic record. Remember, we looked at that yesterday, and how it's like a great naga. The Akashic record is like a great naga that stretches from, a naga is like a kind of a snake that stretches from the beginnings of creation through to the end of creation, and that it's overriding intelligence. It feeds off of love. I'm feeling a lot of changes taking place right now, a lot of downloads coming in for everybody. It seems like a lot of people are getting downloads that have to do with the rasa, which is a question I'm not sure that I completely finished answering. And I'm also seeing a lot of purification. And for some people, I'm seeing purification in the area between the solar plexus and the pelvic floor, that whole area, the whole gut, belly, stomach area. There's some shifting taking place in there, and that's very good. And it's in activating a upgrade for the gut bacteria, for the digestive process, increased capacity, increased digestive capacity. That's happening right now. And that's all about processing, right? That's what digestion is. You take something in and you break it to its smaller pieces and smaller pieces and smaller and smaller and smaller. You turn it into consciousness, and then from consciousness, you build it back into the physiology. So that's processing. And that's kind of like the two strokes of the divine dialogue too, right? We start with something and we break it down till you have nothing. You're alone. The hero is he's facing his greatest fears. He's going through his greatest transformation, and then he rebuilds himself out of that experience. And that's also what's happening with our understanding of truth. The understanding of truth is going through the hero's journey right now, where it started with a very kind of broad, complex comprehension of what is truth, and it has to break down into the simplicity of experience and bliss, basically. It just is. Truth is. It is existence. At the level of existence, as it breaks down like that, for us who are pushing our way to the upper ends, the upper frequency levels of the human experience, then from that isness, with intelligent focus of attention, we can manifest or create anything. You can do it. All right. I hope that answered the question about rasa. That was a really, really profound question. I hope that I sufficiently answered the question also about what is truth, because that's also very precious. But I think what we're doing right now is we are manifesting. We're manifesting from the isness, the truth, back up again in a form that accommodates our ability to use energy healing. So we've lived in a world where energy healing wasn't even a thing. I mean, if we think back to previous generations, right? Your parents, your grandparents, energy healing wasn't a thing. And if anybody did anything even remotely near to it, they were probably screamed witch or something. So we're in a different time now. So we need to restructure this reality so that we can accommodate our ability to use our skill set, our ability to move energy around, our ability to see that which is beneath the surface of creation, our ability to access information from all these amazing archives of creation, doing that and being able to interface those behaviors with this world. It's interesting. Okay, without going out on a tangent on that, I'm going to come to the next question. Thank you so much for flowing through you to awaken the connection to the Akashic record. Oh, you are so welcome, my dear. If you weren't with me last night, I did a big section on that toward the end of yesterday's webinar too, so check that out. Could there be some pointers about how to specifically tap into the Akashic record and apply it in our life? All right, I'm going to just say that I really answered that question in a very thorough way in yesterday's session. So in order to save ourselves time, today I'm not going to rehash it completely. But thank you for the question. Your thinking is so right on. It's so really beautiful and perfect. So I want to just honor the fact that you asked this question, because I think the same way. And that's why we covered those points yesterday. So definitely check that out. It's it's in the second half near the very end of the Friday webinar, which you will everyone will be receiving a recording. And I even gave some true life examples, and we did a whole healing and restructuring for ourselves so that we have better access to the Akashic record. It was fun. Oh, another Akashic record question. Okay. I know the Akashic records exist in the absolute and are not readily accessible to just anyone. Yes, it takes some training to be able to do so, as I've been told. Did we receive a download to the Akashic record last evening? Yes, and access to it, and not just the energy frequency of what the Akashic record feels like so that you can find it in the field of your own consciousness, but an actual integration and establishment of your relationship with the Akashic record as a living entity, as a life force within you. And the thing is, we identify ourselves as living entities, right? As people entities. We're human people. And that's a nice... And it's easy, because when you look in the mirror, man, there's a nose and there's ears and all the bits and pieces are all there. The cheeks are right there. So it's easy to identify with oneself as a people. However, as beings of light, as beings of consciousness, the physiology has to express what we really truly are, which is divine being, in like a Reader's Digest version. Our bodies have this lovely bilateral symmetry, for example. So that lets us have a relationship between all the different pairs of opposites in creation, and the pairs of opposites in creation come together to create wholeness. Even wholeness and totality versus the relative is also expressed in the physiology up here in the brain area. So I could go into that more at another time, I suppose. But the point is that we are much, much more than just our bodies, much more. And we are beings at the fine level. If we go on our y-axis, we spread out. Up at the top, we're just a little person. But if we go deeper, deeper, deeper consciousness, it spreads, spreads, spreads until it spreads out to infinity. And when the consciousness, which we are, spreads out, we perceive it, we allow our awareness to come down and experience its reality at that infinity level, we realize well, all the things in creation, including the Akashic record, are aspects of my being. They're contained within what I know myself to be. So it's really an aspect of self. Have you ever looked at those exquisitely beautiful mathematical art forms that there's some up on YouTube in different places where they'll take the Mandelbrot set. It'll take hours and hours to get a computer to make the Mandelbrot set. So you can go at deeper, 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 deeper levels of it. I just watched one like sometime in the last month. It was amazing. The technology, the supercomputing power required to take you into the deepest reaches of the Mandelbrot set are just amazing. But what you find is that, and we touched on this yesterday, is that as the Mandelbrot set becomes more complex, it also starts to become more simple in terms of patterns. Becomes more complex, but it becomes more simple in terms of repeating patterns. So the form of self at those deep levels of creation is more simple. Like here at our manifest level, we're all fancy pants. But at that deeper level, it's more like threads of light. We're just threads of light. We're beings like a fabric of light. These beautiful threads. And the Akashic record is a thread. It's a thread made of threads. It's a thread made of all the threads. That's what the Akashic record is. It's a thread made of all the threads. And so when all the threads work together, and then what happens is you get like a ball of yarn. You get something that's like a ball of yarn. However, when anything that's like that comes into contact with flow of energy, it like spreads out. And so if you have something that's a circle that's going like that, like a circle, and you put a force behind it, you get something that goes like this, like a sine wave. And so that's what the Akashic record has done, because it's for us. It's moving from the beginnings of creation to the end of creation. And so it's stretching out like a sine wave, and it's curling, it's swirling like that and it's the whole creation swirling, basically. So that's a little bit deeper insight into the nature of the Akashic record to support your ability to appreciate and understand who and what you are at that level, because you are that, and I am, we all are that. So did we receive the download for Akashic record last evening? Yes. If so, what's the best way to access? Best way is to approach that aspect of your own being with deepest gratitude, devotion, love, humility, to approach that way. And we did that last night as a collective. You might recall, and even now we're looking into the Akashic record. We're doing that as a collective. We're approaching this aspect of our own being with this deep reverence, respect, and appreciation for the grandeur and the amazingness of its existence. And as we do that, it responds because every single thing in the entire universe responds to your love. Love is the currency of the universe. I mentioned that before, so it still is. So when that, and that's why we did the activation for the heart, right? Because when we have more fullness in the heart area, then we can offer more fullness to that aspect of creation. And I'm just watching that as a collective now, because we did the exercise today to enrich the heart capacity. And then we, as a collective, we offer that into the Akashic record. And what I'm feeling, this is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling blessings and acknowledgement coming back from the Akashic record back into our group in waves. And these waves are coming back as waves of positivity and negativity, if you will, as waves of dark and light working together, interfacing. So it's a transformational energy which is being received by us at this time from the area of self that we think of as the Akashic record. And it's waving through our group and supporting everyone's ability. Oh, there's purification in it. There is a greater increase of our capacity to provide the exact color of light, the exact flavor of love that the Akashic record appreciates most. So what we're doing is we're getting a communication from the Akashic record into our group of how to create specific frequencies of love that interface into that form of ourself in a way that is maximally nourishing. I'm going to just feel it and then see how well I can articulate it for everyone. There's a holy silence connected with that love. A sweet innocence. There is complete non-attachment. It just flows. It's like a flow of communication between yourself and yourself. That when we communicate to ourselves, it just flows. It just is. We don't even think about it. We just take for granted that we're always with ourselves. And the Akashic record says it's like that. We can take for granted that this is always part of who we are. And we don't have to, it's allowing, the purification part has to do with allowing a dissolving of worry and attachment and concern over what if I do it wrong or anything like that. We're dealing with an aspect of self that is so big. It is so eternal, so massive. It's rather invincible in its nature. It's invincible. And yet, in order to make maximum use of the potential that's there, it is important to work in a very concise manner with the Akashic record. This is all the information. It's just I'm spitting it out as I'm reading it off of that form. So concise means simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's saying if you want answers, good answers, you need to ask good, simple questions. And everybody's receiving information right now through the crown of the head, through your crown, of how to formulate those questions, how to formulate the question in terms of not words, but a feeling. When you offer it as a kind of intention or a kind of a sense of the thing. It's a little bit like if you want to search Google, you could write in a big old sentence, where in the world will I ever find da-da-da-da-da? Or you could just put in the word, green apples or whatever it is you're looking for at the time. You don't have to put it into the Google search bar as a big old complex sentence. Just the idea of it, the sense of the keywords. That's it, keywords. So it's like that. We communicate with the Akashic record, not through key words, but through key feelings. So there's specific feelings. And so it's the purity that's behind the question that will elicit the maximally detailed and useful response. I hope that helps. All right. So have fun with that, because when you produce questions like that, it also cultivates within your own being a lot of sweetness and goodness. Yes?
My experience is if you don't get the right answer, you're asking the wrong question.
Oh, that's beautiful. So one lady says that her experience is if she doesn't get the right answer, that's because she's asking the wrong question. And yeah, well put. Well put. And also, I don't know if you've ever experienced, if anybody's ever experienced it, sometimes you ask about something like, like, how can I heal this problem? And instead of getting the antidote, you get more details on the problem. You get a deeper understanding of the problem. And that helps formulate a more intelligent question, right? Then you have, oh, the problem isn't really that. It's actually that I felt hurt about something. Then well, how do I heal the hurt, And then the answer comes back for that. And that ends up being more the seed of it. Oh, it's a great question. Thank you. Okay, so you mentioned giving love and gratitude to the Akashic record and then ask a question you wanted to answer. What else is needed? I tried that and wasn't sure if I received any information. How does one know when you receive the answer and what is the truth? Oh, that ties into the other question, doesn't it? Is it mental, visual? Is it a matrix or a blueprint? I'm having trouble imaging things. No worries about imaging because it comes in the form that works best for your sensory combo. But what happens is the answer comes back as a wave of knowingness, and it comes back in through the crown of the head and it activates the Ajna chakra, which then translates the knowingness into forms that are useful to you. So if you don't tend to be a visual person very much, no worries. What'll happen is sometimes a word will come. Sometimes an old memory or a sensation or a flavor of a smell that you experienced when you were a kid, or even a movie that you'd watched, or anything. There's all different varieties of the way your brain translates that download of knowingness into something that's useful for you. But the trick is to validate it, to give it validity in your own mind, to honor whatever comes, even if it's very abstract, even if it's foggy, it's just some kind of foggy, remote, little fleeting something, then just even that is something. You can take that fleeting something, you don't know what it is, and offer that into your own silence. It wouldn't hurt to look at the video I made about algorithms, because that goes through the process in more detail. So we could maybe, to my team, we can add that link. And maybe we want to add the link also of the fractals, because that's something very special and beautiful. Thank you. I hope that helped. And as far as knowing whether it's truth or not, the fact is that everything has a place in reality where it is true. I would like to give an example, actually, before we go on. So I live in this small town. There's only about 10,000 people. So it's small for a town in America. But a few years ago, I had the experience on 3 separate occasions with 3 separate clients who all came to me and explained that in a past life, they had been Joseph of Nazareth. And I thought, wow, what are the chances, It's a small town, man. And the Joseph of Nazareth reincarnated right here in Fairfield. And amazingly, for 3 different people. How does that work? I was like, in my mind, I was like, how does that work? I was trying to figure it out. Like, what's the truth? What's the truth? To those people, that's the truth. That's their truth. They have memories and they have direct experiences and they have evolved at this time in their life as an outgrowth or as a manifestation of Joseph of Nazareth. Maybe they think the other ones were fakes. I don't know. But anything's possible. The thing is, anything's possible. And since we're working with simultaneous parallel universes and lots of different streams of reality, and even in one lifetime, you can slide across universes. Like that day, a week ago, when I stepped my foot out of the road, I stepped back from the road just in time. Just in time. There was that moment where I had a choice to split. It was like a fork in the road of the story of my life. I could go that way or I could go that way. What will it be? And so both ways are valid. Both ways are valid. So when somebody comes to me and says, I was Joseph of Nazareth, because who knows, some of you may have thought you were just, God bless you. If you were, it doesn't mean that you're not that. It just means that reality takes there are all these different threads, right, at the fine level of creation. They all are going along together and they're crossing over each other and they're folding around each other, and there are a lot of different realities that can happen. So as far as how do we know it's the truth, the answer is you can take it at face value that it is a truth, or you can test it. If it's true in this reality that you're existing in right now, what you do is you move with it a little bit, or virtually. You say, well, I'm getting the idea that I should go to the beach. You know, I was like, how do I heal my heart? And I keep seeing the ocean and I should go to the beach. So then what you do is just imagine going to the beach for a minute. Close the eyes, imagine yourself on the seashore, the lovely breeze. How do you feel? What is the feeling of going to the beach do for you? If going to the beach is the answer to the question, then you'll find even imagining it produces a healing effect. And if it's so much, you might go to the beach, or you might just imagine it, and that's enough to heal. But you can test. You can always test, and you can test virtually so that you're safe, or you can go physically all out and take a step in that direction. You go to get a plane ticket to go to the beach, and it turns out that there aren't any sales on plane tickets right now, and you're like, well, maybe I shouldn't actually go, right? So nature will tell you. Nature's telling us at every moment what to do. It's very nice. There's always guidance there, and it's the bigger self that's guiding. All right, next question. Can you talk about the Concordant records, which I understand is reading the records of the future? Ooh, that's an interesting question. So just for the record here, I've never heard the word Concordant records before. So that's new for me. So I check back in with the Akashic record, right, in myself, and here's what comes. Is that there is a range of virtual futures from any given moment of the present. So you're here in the present and you have this range of all of these different virtual directions that you can take. So there's a variety of infinite parallel universes kind of spreading out from you like that. And each one of them has a different energy frequency in it. And some of them are more aligned with your highest potential than others. So the deal is to find the feel of balance within yourself now, and that alignment with your highest future now. And then whatever of those virtual futures, those concordant records, are harmonious with the current state of the physiology, those are the ones that are going to come towards you. It's like the future is reaching out to meet you as you're kind of stretching forward to meet it. So what we're really doing is we're lining ourselves up with the future, which is most supportive of our own well-being and the very highest and best good for the whole creation. Everything is the future. The concordant records include everything, including the whole creation folding back on itself and going back to beginning and all that. It's huge. It's huge. When I look at it, it's just huge, which is cool. We like it, and we'll keep evolving our skill set and refinement and perception so we can go in and even more figure out how to work with the laws of nature of the concordant records to even better light up those specific possibilities which are going to be most beneficial, most blessed for ourselves and our world. Thank you. Awesome question. Never heard of those before. Okay. Dear Dorothy, as you know, just had a session with kind of a frequencing therapy. It knocked me off balance, can't quite find my center right now. Feeling is this may be a good thing, as prior point of balance was creating illness. Absolutely correct. So the question is, how do we settle gracefully into a new point of balance that may at first feel quite unsettling in its newness? The answer is when the old system breaks down and we reestablish ourselves to the new system, there are little shreds that remain consistent through the transformation. So you've heard the saying, that which is closest to the truth lasts the longest. So this principle is that the kind of dynamic transformation that the being goes through during the healing process can be really intense. And it can be so intense that one loses a lot. We lose a lot of what we had. We lose a lot of the old world, the old paradigm, the old structure. But there are little bits that stay. And those little bits that stay are blessed because they're like the seeds out of which the new reality is born. So the thing to do is to nurture those structures of self. And anything that can withstand the fire of knowledge, right? We burn up all our old karma in the fire of knowledge. Whatever can withstand that energy is going to be very close to pure being. So, of course, that's one reason why when we're going through a healing process, rest is always suggested, because in the resting state, one is able to kind of gently work with the subtler energies of the being and find our way back to what is correct or what is going to be supportive of health. I'm just looking into this very precious physiology, my brother, my dear, not my actual brother, but someone who's very close to me. And one of the elements that I'm seeing that's a survival element is that quality of newness and expansion. Because the quality of newness, it's very close to the energies in the body that regrow and rebuild tissue from the ground up, including like the human growth hormone and, you know, some of the other, at a dense level, the physical level, human growth hormone, at subtler levels, energies at the causal physiology that are responsible for the activation of the regrowth and the rebuilding of the system. And I'm seeing for this particular person and for everybody else in the audience who needs that, where there seems to be some healing for the kidneys. And I just, as you know, at the last webinar, I was talking about the value and importance of the skeletal system. Well, I discovered recently that the great supporter of the skeletal system is the kidneys, because what the kidneys do is they're part of that processing system in the body. They pull out, they purify all the fluids of the body, run through the kidneys, and they pull out what's valuable. We save, the kidneys help you save stuff from nutritional elements from the food that then go and become stored in the bones, or they go and support healthy production of body elements from the bone marrow. And of course, the kidneys have to be the great discriminators and the great knowers of truth, because the kidneys have to see, oh, this is good and this is not good. And we're going to eliminate this one, we're going to keep that one. So much, the kidneys are a tremendous resource of intelligence in the body. Intelligence and discrimination. So we don't think of them like little brains back there, but they kind of are. They're part of that filtration system. It's important. It's important. So there's some honoring that's being given to the kidneys and connection that's being made, an integration between the ability to identify what is specifically right and true for us right now, right here, and the function of the kidneys. That's what they do. It's interesting. I'm feeling discordant feelings being released from the kidneys. I'm feeling for the ancestors, it's going back multiple, at least 4 generations, 5 generations, in other people, more generations. Releasing attitudes and beliefs about the kidneys and their association with the urinary system and elimination, because it's considered dirty, elimination dirty, like that. And the kidneys sit at this amazing junction point. There are 2 of them, so there's a junction between them. There's a relationship. They sit at this point between the whole eliminative cycles of the physiology and the nurturing cycles of the physiology. So it's a very vital spot, very close. Oh, speaking of kidneys. So it's a healing for the kidneys. It's a healing for the kidneys. All right. One more question. Oh, and we're at our time. Could not all three of the Josephs of Nazareth have been fractals of Joseph? Yes, I think so. Could not all three of them have been fractals of Joseph of Nazareth? Yes. And that goes for people who think they're Jesus too. I understand that there are whole wards and in mental institutions of people who all think they're Jesus, or there are places on earth where when people go there, they think, even if they don't think they're Jesus, when they go to that place, they start to feel like they think they're Jesus. There are certain locations, in Paris is one of them I heard. There's a certain mental anomaly that occurs with certain people when they go to Paris. And then there's this other place in the Middle East where people get this other different anomaly where they think they're Jesus. But what happens is those forms of life reside at a very fine level of creation. They're not in physical body anymore. So they're kind of very spread out and abstract, just like the Akashic record, or just like various ascended masters or different subtle beings with subtle bodies. And then there's certain locations on earth that when we go there, the laws of nature in that area activate or enliven the integration of that particular part of one's consciousness with the personality, with the sense of self-identity. And then one says, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm Jesus, or I feel like I was Jesus. Well, essentially, we're all carrying the energy frequency of Jesus as part of our own being, but I choose to get up in the morning and call myself Dorothy because it makes sense to me to do that, because it's logical. Anyway, we've done this. I think we went through everything except just one more quick question from a very, very sweet woman in England. And her question has to do with dreaming about people who have passed away, and the feelings, having very intense feelings about people who've passed out of their bodies. And my husband was suggesting to me that one of the things I could have talked about today was do a lot more exploring into the spirit world and what it's like when a person leaves the physical form, and you know, what are the details of that, and what are the laws of nature there, and what kind of healings we can do. So that's like a whole nother section that I think we could probably do like a whole nother webinar just on that practically. But in the meantime, it's my experience, and I do a lot of dream work, and I've had conscious awareness during sleep and dreams for decades. It's my experience that when I meet someone who's no longer in the body in my dreams, they also are experiencing that. So it's a kind of a real thing. It's the dream level of reality and the function of the nervous system in dream state allows us to traverse many layers of creation, many realms, many realms along the X and Y axis we can traverse. And so that's a real thing when you have that experience. And, you know, it's likely that the moments that you were with them in your dreams were just moments in their reality too. And they may have only been consciously aware of your dream reality to even a partial degree. They may not have been fully aware. The fact that you saw your father with this other man who had passed away earlier means that the two of them were together and they were exploring a little bit their range and their capability of interfacing through these realms of creation. We could probably do a whole nother webinar just on the realms of the X and Y axis too. All right, everyone. I hope that helps answer the question. Thank you for being with me. This has been very interesting today. I would like to say one more time that these live webinars are basically the most advanced work that I'm offering in the field of energy healing. So for all of you who are already doing very well, moving energies around in your body and accessing all the archives of knowledge and having refined perception, everything, these are the sessions where we're going to take it another step further. And for those of you who are new but want to learn how to heal yourself, the next few webinars, I'm going to start really focusing in on practical points of how to upgrade everybody's ability to use energy healing to heal yourself and the world. So thank you for being with me. I love you all very much. It's been really sweet. Oh, bye. Bye. Thank you for everything. Many people sending in their blessings. Yeah, I love you. See you later.